Hi, I'd like to comment on the Professor Shin's paper, Growth Slowdown Results. And this is a very interesting and very important piece of work, especially for the emerging economies to start slowing down. Right? So let me summarize this paper briefly. And this paper is motivated by the sustainable economic development has been one of the most important topics in economics, but the problem is sorry. The middle-income countries experience growth slowdown. So in his earlier paper, and he added two things. One is he extended the sample period to year 2010, and the second, employ additional potential sources of slowdowns. And then he found two slowdown income level. One is around $11,000, and the other one is around $15,000. Then what are the correlates of the slowdown as considered with his earlier work and high old age dependency ratio and high investment share and the undervalued exchange rate. And in addition, in this paper, he found that high quality human capital and increased high technology export ratio tend to reduce the probability of the slowdown. And other factors matter too, right? And then I have basically three comments. One is whether the slowdowns are transient or temporary or structural. If there are two types of slowdown, we must be distinguished between those two. And this comment is based on the multiple growth trend predicted by conditional convergence framework. So when there is little evidence of absolute convergence. So if there exists multiple growth trend, then those trends must be incorporated in this paper. So conclusion of these comments is basically, I believe that Shin's paper put all economies, excluding low-income countries, but it's kind of too ambitious. So if there are multiple growth trends, then we have to divide some countries, such as high-income countries and middle-income countries. And regulation of empirical analysis must be based on these two separate growth trends. And yeah. So basically, this is my comment. It needs to distinguish between transient and structural sustained growth. And the motivation of this comment is that why this distinction might be important, and temporary growth slowdowns are necessarily bad. Such as when you drive a car, then sometimes you have to brake to have the safe and steady growth, right? So that is the motivation of this comment. And the other issue is the political regime changes, especially from autocracy to democracy, inevitable sexual shift and improvements in income distribution and the quality of life. Sometimes the economy must be slowed down. And then, therefore, in this paper, it is not clear which type of growth slowdown dealing with. So is that about the transient or temporary slowdown along the single growth trend or change in growth trend from high income to low income, high income to middle income, or middle income to high income. So low income countries are not excluded in this paper, it's okay, but still sample countries may face different steady states, and as a consequence, a growth slowdown may imply either transient or structural slowdown. So this is my suggestion for this paper, and we may do clustering analysis to identify different income growth, so different growth trends, and regression analysis for each subgroups of countries may be useful. The second comment of this paper, and this paper is used the Hausman definition of growth slowdown, and it's kind of a rule of thumb approach. So, and this paper also employed the child test for a single known break test. So for structural change in growth trend, And sometimes it might be interesting, multiple grade point tests appeared in this paper. And sometimes growth slowing down is not previously known, so sometimes we have to rely on unknown breakpoints test. So Bayern-Perron test and then David and Papel paper is regarding these two issues, multiple breakpoints with unknown breaks might be useful. So those tests will endogenously found the starting point or possibly timeline of the slowdown. And alternatively, to identify and date the transitional slowdowns and the timeline, how long the slowdown persists, then those researchers may be useful. And the third comment about this paper is that based on growth literature and other potential sources of slowdown may be considered. The first, and the structural transformation. This paper may consider the agricultural share and service share, or the remainder manufacturing share. Then those variables are available in World Development Indicators. And the key engine of economic development and growth may be the migration of the labor from agriculture to manufacturing, and an inverse relationship between output diversification and real income for some countries are the key source of economic growth. And therefore, those industry share or structural transformation can be tested for the slowdowns. The next, this paper did not consider the institutional factors, and there are many types of institutional factors. Those are available from Economic Freedom of the World database, and such as quality of legal institutions and corruption levels. Those are typically influence the financial development, and those variables might be considered to study the slowdowns. And this paper uses the old dependency variable, and sometimes in growth literature, gender bias might be very important, such as sex ratio, and this affects economic growth through higher childhood mortality and increased fertility rate and great malnutrition. So those demographic factors might be interesting. I believe that Dr. Shin considered all these variables, but those may not be insignificant in his research. But if he didn't consider one of those factors, then I strongly recommend to use one of these variables. Okay, there are some minor issues, and he interpreted growth slowdown as a sign of mean reversion. I think we gotta be careful because there is little evidence of absolute income convergence, and therefore the sign of mean reversion might be overstated. And the second issue is the high technology exploration variable, and I found that this the observation of high technology ratio is very short. It might be too short for this analysis, the sample period, because of the degree of freedom problem. And this paper uses the per capita real GDP, but when we consider the economic development slowdown, one might consider alternative measures of economic development, although the sample period is a little bit short. And one possible case would be Human Development Index. I believe this is my comment.